Should be able to do this off the top. What did I change that it's saying? Alright, let's try this again. Think off the top of your head, man. What's going on, everybody? My name's Sharpshot4K. I'm a pro PUBG player, and today we're just gonna be talking everything about settings in PUBG and going over what I use and giving you advice on what you should be using if you're wondering. Alright, starting off from the top. Display mode. If you're ever in a competitive game, you need to run full screen. The reasoning behind this is that full screen mode gets you the max amount of frames that your PC and monitor can get. I realize. But yeah, when applications is open full screen mode, full. This is all the technical stuff you want to read it, but yeah, basically it just gives you the max FPS you're gonna be able to get. Switching over to resolution, you probably heard that a lot of players use something like 1728, or they flip this 1728 and 1080. I think it's personally I think it's preference. On lower end PCs, I do recommend using lower resolution. You'll get more frames. I like the way 1920 by 1080 looks. That's what I use. Lobby FPS cap, I just cap it at 60. Reason behind is you don't want your PC trying too hard when you're just in the lobby. 60 FPS looks clean as well. In-game FPS cap, I personally use unlimited. That's because I have a 360Hz monitor and I have a NASA PC. So if I tried to do custom and cap my FPS, it only goes to 300. But what you can do if you don't have an SPC, you have either like 244Hz monitor or something, you can cap it at that. If you have 144, cap it at that. If you have a really low end PC, you don't usually get over 120 frames, cap it like at 120. Display base, you could use this if you adjust it in your Nvidia controls panel settings. Oh, it didn't show something. All good though. Brightness, I use 85 on all maps. This is just your preference, basically, visually, what you like. If you're seeing too many dark spots and you can't really see through buildings, up your brightness a little bit, test it out for yourself. The fuck, that an ice cream truck. Alright. Switching over to audio. Master. That's all just preference on what you're able to hear. Music disabled, obviously. UI. So you want some UI sounds. I think the UI sounds are like picking something up off the floor. Yeah, it makes a little sound. So I just keep it because if you're ever playing on ping or something like that, you'll know you picked something up. Or if you didn't, because of that sound, I keep it on just 10. Doesn't have to be higher than all the other sounds. Gameplay volume, I keep it at 100. Emo volume at 20, just emo. This is just weapon sounds, fully your choice. HRTF is, for most players that I've ever played PUBG professionally, they all use HRTF on. I haven't really tested this in depth. I just always use HRTF, but disabled makes it a little bit harder to hear. Might as well use that feature. I recommend keeping your volume reducer to 40 to 50, maybe even 60. I only use it when I'm in cars and I gotta hear comms going on, stuff like that. Moving on to controls. Setting or your mouse sensitivity is all completely preference. Now, if you just started PUBG and you you played other games, right? And in other games, what you want to do is get your PUBG settings as similar to what you're using in other games already. That's what I did when I started. I actually never. Why does that keep on muting? I never switched my settings. My sense. I actually only ever switched it once in all the time I've ever played PUBG, and that was from 40 to 32, just because I started playing other games and I felt lower sense was a little bit better. I have a sense. But it's something you gotta mess around with. I can point my camera down for a second and show you what I do to figure out my sense. I put my mouse to one side of my mouse pad, drag it across slowly to the other side, and try to do a full 360. And I put my sense somewhere around that feels comfortable, where I can do a full 360, one swipe across. It's not necessary, but it's just something, just some small advice if you're not sure what to use. Your sense is completely your own your own preference. For some players though, there's some styles of aiming that you should keep in mind. Alright. And that is, if you're that player that goes into buildings, you're clearing everything, or you're first on your team to take all the fights, you kind of want to have a little bit of higher sense, because you need to check a lot of angles at the same time. That's just playstyle preference, so you can do the same thing on close end. Alright, moving on. I use vertical sense 1. That's also just preference. At the beginning, I used 0.7 because that was default, but 0.1 just feels more consistent to me because you're just using the same thing all across. And then universal scope. That's, again, just all this is just preference. So moving on to key bindings. Let's go over some essential key bindings that are necessary to use. And the first one would have to be your jump and vault key. You're always going to want to bind jump and vault to different key bindings are all preference as well. I'm just going to list out what I use. I use space for jump only, and then vault, and then unbind this. For walk, I use caps lock. I don't think that's default, but sometimes it's useful in situations where you don't want to make a lot of noise, and it's not really useful unless there's other sounds going on. People will hear you if it's quiet in the game and you're trying to sneak up someone, they will hear you. So try only using it when there's something to cover your sound. There's also, I'm not sure if this is a myth, it's not been heavily tested, but if you walk standing up to the crowd, you're actually a tiny bit more silent, is what the rumor, the myth is that I've always heard. Alright, next up. Yeah, and a lot of these is just preference, so I'm not really going to go over them. This is more essential though now. Marking your quick marker to your left mouse button. I've actually seen a lot of people that don't do this, including players I played scrims with, like recently. Tier 2 and 3 players. This is essential because it lets your teammates know on the top, there on the bar at the top of my screen, it lets them know what direction I'm shooting in. So if everyone on your team has this bounded, and you know, like, for example, I'm yellow, I'm sharp, I'm shooting at someone, but maybe I'm either not calming it or whatever, at least you know at the top of my screen, at the top of your screen, like, what direction at least it is, in the general direction. Also good if, like, you ever misunderstand or calm. In my opinion, that's essential to bind right there, to whatever your fire button is. Because, again, key bindings are just preference. Alright. Moving on. Inventory preference. And then your radio message is that. Is that this? I don't know if that's the ping button. But if it is, that's obviously central to the button that quick and easy to press. Mine's middle mouse button. I personally don't use the throwable wheels or the heel wheels. And I think in a logical sense, it doesn't make sense to use it, because if I want to throw a throwable, it's a lot easier to know what button I'm pressing and just equip my throwable and throw it. And same thing for meds. I guess for meds, it's a little bit more sense for meds because there's different types of med. And you're not going to bind each different type of med. But still, I have heal item bound, which is actually a clutch thing. It just uses whatever heal item you have. So I have that bound. Can't find it. Get in here. Whatever, I'll just tell you. I have it bounded to a mouse button I have on the top of my mouse. Spacebar for run goes hard, yeah. Simply Matthias strat. Some players have those weird key bindings. It is what it is. It is preference. I'm just gonna go over the essentials. Like I said, having a button to quickly heal with. If you have a top button on your mouse to quickly just tap a heal in whatever situation, in my opinion, is essential. Or if it's a keyboard, it's gonna be a key on your keyboard. Make it something that's quick to use and not something that you have to press on the other side of your keyboard or take your hand off your mouse or something. So yeah, that's healing. What I think is essential personally. Uh, is this? Yeah, I think having an aim button and the separate ADS button is essential in my opinion. You just need to have a different. Mine's my aim button, which is this. Found it on the bottom mouse button of a G Pro Superlight. My ADS is bound to the right button. Alright, moving on. Now this, I don't think a lot of players use this. I might be wrong. Monitor button for heals? That'd be wild. I don't think a lot of players use this, and I feel like it's actually so clutch. So as you can see, it's my shift button and my mouse wheel button to change my weapons to the next and previous weapon. So what that does, if I'm ever in a situation where I see a guy over there, I'm already shifting or whatever, I'm already running. Even if I'm not running, I can still do it without running. Right there, I'm holding shift and scrolling up or down to switch. I can quickly just pull out my DMR and tap instead of having to press 2 or 1 and take my hand off the WASD keys. I think that's low-key like a smart tip that I don't think a lot of players use, even pro players. I don't know anybody else who uses that. But yeah, shout out Super People. That Super People actually having that default binded got me into that. Next up, all stuff. Yeah, like I said earlier, oh shit, I bind all my utility. All my utilities bounded to buttons, so I know instantly when I'm pressing is gonna pull it out. And if I don't have one, I'll get the note. I don't have message. My gun stays out. Where was it? Yeah, I don't have any of this stuff. I don't really play PUBG. So this isn't really. Some players don't use zeroing. I personally. Display base is doggy. Is it really? Same binds for soon. I didn't know that. I thought if you. Well, I don't use it for that reason, but I just use uncap. If you mess with your Nvidia settings, you can set that up. So if you are a player who uses zeroing, when you try to reset your zeroing, I just have it to the press down middle mouse button while aiming in. That quickly just resets it for the next person I'm shooting at. So that makes it easy. Have this bounded to something that's quick and easy to press. My recommendation is middle mouse button. Hold breath. A lot of people do not hold breath when they're DMRing, and it actually makes you beam sometimes. So make sure you're holding your breath when DMRing. Have it binded. Now, as you can see, I do have my heals binded, but the most important thing is use heal item. That's just going to use the first available thing, and it goes in order from medkit to first aid to bandage. So whatever heal item you have, I'm going to use the first thing there. You can bind this if you want. You definitely want to bind boost item to something. I don't know why that would, but I use boost on 0. It's preference, like I said though. Oh yeah, we got a good one here. So if you have default drive buttons, right? Shift the boost, WSD, default stuff. And now we go down to driving. I mean, seat swapping. You see how I have everything bounded to shift besides the first one? The reason for that, now there's actually some other local tips that I don't use, some people use. But the reason I have shift bounded to everything is so my car stays moving while I'm seat swapping. A lot of players know this already, but for the new players, you want your car to move forward while you're seat swapping, so you're able to not lose momentum and your car doesn't like swerve or something when you go to seat swap. So yeah, now you know. Make sure you have these bounded like that, or to whatever your nitro button is on your car. Anything else, I pretty much use default. All stuff you can mess around with and use at your preference, but just make sure whatever the nitro key is the same button you use to seat swap. Some people actually use QWER on their seats. In my opinion, it's kind of weird, but I like that. I'm not gonna really go into depth with the spectate stuff. Now, interface. You need FPS. Highly recommend disabling this. Kills at least 10 FPS instantly. Colorblind mode. Protanopia. This is just preference though. This is a secret sharp stream finna. Just going over settings. Gonna be uploading this to YouTube. Crosshair color. That's just preference. Weapon hot sled. I personally like to have it enabled because it shows you what weapons you have, stuff like that. In case you ever forget. I don't know, maybe you're dumb like me, Kappa. And I forget my weapon. This is all just really preference. You want dynamic zoom off though, in my opinion. Why would you want your minimap to zoom in and out? Might as well just have it on disabled. Kill feed limit. Now this is important. If you're ever in a competitive game, you need to know what the kill feed is. You need to have that on 10. Ooh, cam covering the settings. Good call. There we go. Clean. Thank you, Crispin. Yeah, kill feed limit. If you're ever playing comp, you need to be able to see all the possible kill feeds, so you need to have that at 10. Add names and kill feed if you're ever in a comp. Obviously, disable that. If you're in just pub games, doesn't really matter. If you want to not see the names, then go for it. I think the benefits of that would be if like you're subconsciously afraid of some players or something like that. Yeah, enable. Interaction target highlight. It's kind of just preference, but it lets you know that you're what you're about to pick up. So I have it enabled. Compass background lets you see the compass top of the screen a little better. I have that enabled. On-screen keybind is a must for new players. I'd say, yeah, you should just have it on, especially if you might help you not have to look down at your keyboard. You have the keyboard muscle memory. Oh yeah, eventually disable that. This is just preference, but it highlights stuff on the ground, so it makes it easier to see. You won't miss, level 3 Vest's line there. I think the best way not to miss it though is like the glowing, the pulsing. Because if it's just glowing, you might be able to miss it because it's like not moving. But when you see colors flash, it's harder to miss, in my opinion. That doesn't really matter. Enable to say what you want. Now the settings everybody wants to know that I actually forgot is settings, because a lot of people think there's either smoke settings or whatever. Now this is the part where maybe some more experienced players are gonna want to know. So starting off render scale, personally I use 120 because I have a NASA PC, but if you're on a lower end PC or even mid end, you want to go to 100. Never less, but never more. If you're on like those mid-tier PCs. The reason being is it's gonna kill your FPS. But if you're able to afford it, go to 120. This is something I tested recently. Your game looked more clear. So on 100, my game, I have noticed for years I've been playing on 100, it's more blurry. It's literally more blurry. So for the FOV, it's kind of like a preference thing. Me personally, I use 103. Always like max FOV in all the games I play. If you play max FOV in the other games you play and you're just starting off PUBG, then go 103. If you like not too zoomed in but sort of zoomed in, pop it on 95. Play around with this and use whatever you want. I personally wouldn't go lower than 90 just because it's too zoomed in at that point, in my opinion. But yeah, that is a preference thing though. Anti-aliasing. So I believe anti-aliasing does cause lag. Not 100% on this. You have it on ultra. It does kill some FPS, but your game doesn't have those like jagged edges that look kind of weird. The downside of this is that I think it makes your game look blurry, so I just have it on very low.
Alright!
Post-processing, it's not something I've heavily tested, but people used to think that, or might currently think that, it has to do with you being able to see through smokes more. I don't think this has ever been heavily tested by anyone. If it is, it's been gatekept. They don't let players know. There's been a lot of misinformation, I think. Personally, it makes lights brighter. It can make it harder to see players, especially if they're behind something that's burning. And it makes edges darker, which might cause you to miss a player, potentially. I could see how this is probably... It makes sense that this would be the real smoke setting on that on something. Shadows you want them very low. You'll still be able to see a player's shadows, and it won't cause your FPS to drop. Textures now. I have an ultra. Like I said before, I have a good PC, so I can afford it. Just makes your game look a little cleaner all around. I'm actually gonna put it on high. That looks, at least in that picture, it looks like it makes things darker. There to there. It's not really that much change. And that kind of just makes your game kind of Play-Doh-y. I'm actually gonna switch that to high. Effects. Now this is my secret setting. I don't think a lot of players know this, but this effects being on ultra, although it does make like these things a little bit harder to see through. The secret behind this is that, in my opinion, you're able to see players through water a little bit better than without it, and you're able to see players shooting from far away. So if you're ever getting like shot from far away and it's like either annoying you or you need to spot it quick to shoot back, it's like at a medium distance, you'll see the gun muzzle on their flash like super bright white on your screen, and you'll instantly spot them as if like maybe they're head peeking you or something. You'll spot their muzzle flash if their gun's over it. So I use that on ultra. Kind of like, I don't think a lot of players even fuck with that, but I do. Full HD, you definitely want this on very low because putting it on high is gonna make your game lag, and you're gonna get bush ratted, I think. Does it fuck with bush rat? I don't know. You'll just be able to see players at a farther distance too. Put this on very low. Say you're scouting something that's far away, voice crack. You'll just be able to see them, and the trees won't block your vision. View distance. If you have a better PC, why not just go up to medium if you're not gonna lose frames? If you have a lower end PC, use very low. Doesn't hurt that much. Just make buildings. When buildings are Play-Doh, if you ever scouted over a couple kilometers away, buildings will go Play-Doh, and you will be able to see basically players running around in them because it'll just be fully blocked by that. So yeah, I use it on medium because I can afford it, but it doesn't really matter too much. You'll still be able to see players if they go into your LOS. Sharpen. Now sharpen I've enabled, but I think it's completely preference. Not really sure what it does, but for me, it's just made my game look clearer. VSync is essentially must have. all disabled, same with motion blur. Now the DirectX 11. Oh, I forgot to have the video up. I do have a video for you guys to watch. DirectX 11 enhanced versus 12. Thought I had it up. Bringing it up. Watch it together.
I'm Andrea, founder of a boutique handbag brand, Andy. And
So what I saw when I watched these videos. Yo, Snakers, thank you for the raid, bro. What's up, everybody? Welcome in. Why high textures happy? If you're able to, if you have a decent enough PC, just make sure game look a little bit better overall. Just players and guns doesn't directly affect you too much, I think, in my opinion. Just make sure your guns look cool and have a little bit your game not look like it's an arcade game, kind of. That's why I use it on high. But if you have a lower NPC, just pop it on very low. I used to use very low. There's nothing wrong with it. Now, from these videos that I watched, I think DirectX 11 and DirectX 11 Enhance are pretty much the same thing, except that DirectX 11 Enhance has less of a low than regular DirectX. And DirectX 12 never used that. It just lowers your FPS, so why would you use it? Never use DirectX 12. Argument between DirectX 11 and DirectX 11 Enhanced is just that low FPS. It doesn't go too low, as low as without it. But the average is like one lower, kind of weird. I personally, I'm gonna stick with just regular DirectX 11. I also, like, one day I switched it and it made my game crash, so sticking with the DirectX 11. Also, if you have a lower NPC, just don't switch off DirectX 11. Mic is cutting out a bit. Fuck. I think we're done with all the in-game settings. I think we're done with that. Now let's go into Nvidia settings, because a lot of people have asked me about Nvidia settings recently. So the first thing you want to do, if you're on a new PC or you haven't optimized your PVC before, you hop onto this. Oh, why do I not have it on rolling? Go to this, use preference emphasizing and low performance. It's gonna make you have the most FPS possible. Now manage 3D settings. I turn this off. A lot of stuff you don't really have to mess with in here. This, I've seen a lot of people turn it off. I'm not sure why, but I'm just gonna go with what everybody else is doing, so I turn that off. Power manage mode. Now this is essential. You want to have that on maximum performance. It's gonna make you have the most FPS possible. And this one as well, high performance and vertical sync off. Nothing else I really fuck with. Resolution, just make sure you're on either your native res or your own custom res, and you have maximum to what your monitor is. This is all preference, but I do recommend playing around with it and seeing what colors you like, especially for PUBG. And yeah, make sure you have this on full screen. I think that's essential. Make sure you have maximum frame rate. I think that is it. We're all done. So send it off. Those are my settings. I think you should be using a lot of those things that I said are essential as well. Now help anybody who's new to PUBG or is curious about what settings to use. Now you know. So yeah, that's it. Now let's play some games.